Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the Jeremy Miller Podcast. All right, Andrew Glaze, welcome to the podcast, man. Super excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So I started, so about 6 months ago or so, I saw all these videos kept popping up in my Instagram feed of this guy out running with like the shortest shorts on the trails with this like Insta360 camera. I had no clue who this guy was, just keeps popping up in my Instagram. And then a few months after that, a few of my friends started sending me this Andrew Glaze guy on Instagram. And they're like, dude, this guy has run like 3+ years of 100-mile weeks, and you got to follow him. Like, he's super, super impressive. And so I started following you. And then now a couple months later, here we are. All that being said, like, dude, you're super inspiring. You're such a positive, like, genuine guy. And so I really admire that and respect that. And I'm just excited to be having a conversation with you.
Well, it sounded like me. It's definitely short shorts and running a lot. You definitely you're watching me.
I love it, man. But I kind of want to just dive in, like, to your whole story. I want to know everything about Andrew Glaze today. Like, what got you to this point? Like, where did you initially get into running? Like, what was your very first experience with running?
My very first experience with running would probably be like third or fourth grade. I played football, and they used to make us run, and it was terrible, and I hated it. Like it was like running was a punishment. So like when we got in trouble, then the coach would make us, we had these trees that were like way in the background, and they were so far away. They were like black, and we called them the black trees, and he'd make us sprint to the black trees and back. And that was probably my first real introduction to running. So I was not a fan. I always sort of looked at running as like a punishment or like a bad thing. In football, they used to make us run like the white lines, on the football field. So you'd run up like whatever it is, 5-10 yards, take a left, run down the line, run up 10 yards. And we do that, which was probably like a half mile total. And it seemed like forever. I hated it. It was terrible. And once I got out of football in high school, like I never ran again, really. In high school, I actually got into a lot of trouble. My parents and their infinite wisdom like sent me away to like bad kid boarding school when I was 16, and went to bad kid boarding school for a couple years, graduated, went to college, didn't run. In fact, I smoked cigarettes and was super unhealthy. I remember I took a class, and my resting heart rate in college was, I think it was like 89. Did no exercise. All I did was smoke cigarettes and just terribleness. Graduated college, continued to not do anything productive exercise-wise. And then when I was 24, I started having like severe panic attacks, anxiety attacks, just a lot of emotional distress. And like somebody who was smarter than me was like, hey, maybe you should try exercise as a way to deal with that anxiety, like, emotional distress. Yeah, so like before the internet, before everybody was like, you could find out, information. I was in my early 20s, like I didn't know what anxiety was. I didn't know like, anything about it. I just know I felt like I was dying. And so basically one of my friends was like, hey, you're not doing anything. You should probably like, quit smoking and try exercise. And so, I was willing to try anything to start feeling good again. I wasn't super happy with the way my life was like turning out, like kind of just being like a fat loser that smoked cigarettes. I was like a computer guy, so, just spent a lot of time in front of a computer and, just not being active or anything. And so I got a personal trainer, started lifting weights, started doing the elliptical trainer, doing all that, and then took a college class to try to learn more about exercise and like the science behind it, because again, this is before like, podcasts and internet and like where you could go like learn about this stuff. I had to like take a college class to learn about the body and how it works and, what you're supposed to eat and what you're supposed to do. And I had this like really inspiring professor, and she like was a big runner herself, and I think she was probably in her 50s or 60s, and like, you know, just super inspired me. In fact, I still like occasionally like send her an email or, whatever, like, hey, I'm still running, here it is like 20 something years later. Um, and yeah, started running in this class. Like, part of it was you had to run a mile and a half like the first week and then a mile and a half the last week of class as like hey, we're going to improve. So the first week I ran the mile and a half. It was terrible. Just like I remembered, I was like, man, this is because I was doing the elliptical trainer and I felt like really like strong, like, oh, I can kill this thing. I was like getting my body back, getting working out, feeling strong, and then running just humbled me. Like I ran that mile and a half and it was just like first 3 laps, I'm like, yeah, this is great. Last 3 laps, I was like dying. And then I was so sore. I can still remember like I couldn't sit on the toilet. Like I went to get on the toilet and my legs like gave out and then I couldn't get off. And this is running a mile and a half. So, um, yeah, I just kept doing it and got stronger and improved my mile and a half time. And then once the class was over, I just never stopped. So that's like 20 something years ago and still running.
Wow, dude, that's incredible, man. That's so it's hilarious to hear you say that a mile and a half your legs were cramping up or giving out, like,
Yeah,
and now knowing what you've done since then,
right.
like I think it just shows you how resilient the human body is and how adaptable it is as long as you stay consistent and give it the correct amount of training and the right stimulus. And I think just consistency, obviously, over time. I want to go back a little bit to some of the stuff you said earlier about like your childhood and whatnot. Like, where do you think a lot of that anxiety came from in your late teens or early 20s? Was it like stuff at home maybe, or was it stuff at school or?
I honestly just think like it was just me not doing anything. Like the body wants to move, and um, I'm like 22, 23 years old. I'm in my prime, and I wasn't like working out. Yeah, so I think the source of anxiety because I was in my early 20s and like right in your athletic prime. And here I was like overweight, smoking cigarettes, doing drugs, like not being like productive and knowing who I am now and what I'm all about and like the fire I have inside of me that like, is always burning. Like I think the anxiety was literally that fire like what are you doing? Like we need to like get this fire out and I needed to move. I mean, I really think that it was just like I wasn't having necessarily like issues at home or anything like that. It was just that I was not active at all. And I had not been active for quite some time, like maybe like 6 years of like doing no exercise at all. And because like once I started exercising, like that went away and it never really, came back except for like, I mean, obviously like occasionally you have like a life event, like a death or something like that where, you might feel a little sadness or, that sort of thing that's affiliated with like an intense life event, but nothing like I was experiencing when I was in my like early 20s. So,
Wow. So you think it was just the movement, the lack of movement is what was causing all that?
I mean, for me, I think that's what it was. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
just, yeah, just being, you know, just a fat smoker who like wasn't doing any exercise, probably not the best thing for like a 23-year-old.
Was it like what got you into that stuff initially? Was it just the people you were hanging around with or what was it?
What the like smoking and all that, or the exercise?
Yeah, like what led you to become overweight and get into smoking and
Uh,
just not be the person you are now?
I in college, it's just like I didn't hang around anybody that like did exercise really. Like I was a like computer dork, and so I hung around a bunch of computer dorks. Love you guys, but we weren't like super athletic, and it just wasn't a priority. Like I said, this is before like there was like an intense internet community, before podcasts, before all that stuff. So it's like if you weren't on the like soccer team or the baseball team in college, or when I went to college, hockey team, which I wasn't on any of those, then like, my friends didn't exercise. Like, I wasn't exposed to it, and so it just wasn't a priority. And I started smoking cigarettes, and like, that doesn't necessarily correlate with physical fitness either. So the people I hung out with smoked, and you know, yeah, I guess the people I surrounded myself with were just exercise wasn't a priority, and then that progressed into my 20s, and um, it just no exposure and no desire. When you're out of shape and you don't feel like good about yourself physically, you don't necessarily have the desire to go out and try to like start something new and put yourself in uncomfortable situations, um, especially when you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I feel like there's just so much to be said about exercise, and especially now, I feel like, I mean, it's easy for me and you probably, or other people that are in the fitness space. It seems like there's kind of a movement of more people getting out and being active. But I mean, I think statistics would say otherwise. Like there's like record amounts of people that have depression and anxiety. And I think a lot of it comes down to just lack of exercise for the most part. Diet probably has a lot to do with it as well, but those are so closely correlated.
Sure.
Now that you've been running for the last 20 years, do you feel like, have you ever gone a prolonged period of time without exercising and within the last 20 years, like since you started getting into it?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's, times when it wasn't like when my son was born, I kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, wasn't running quite as much, gained a little baby weight, stuff like that. And then there was like I got kidney stones real bad once and had to have surgery, and so there was like a couple month period there where I was on like pain medicine and didn't run, and then had to like recover from surgery and whatnot, and they were, I mean, they weren't like the best periods of my life when I look back out of that 20 years, like those like two times when I kind of stopped. I mean, I still like did it a little bit, but just not as much, time constraints and things like that. Um, but like I can remember coming out of the kidney stones and I hadn't really run in a few months, and I remember running like 2 miles up this hill and back, and it was so hard. But like I was just so happy to be like healed and being able to run again. And I just said to myself, like, my body will remember. Just keep this up, and like soon this 2 miles will feel like nothing. And within like, 2 weeks, I was running like 7 to 10 miles again and feeling good. But um, yeah, the kidney stone thing was probably the lowest point. And then like, when my son was born, just, my priority was my son and not running or doing anything else, which, a lot of people will hit me up on social media like, I have a new baby and I'm having problems getting miles. And I just kind of say to them, like, yeah, that's just like normal. It's just going to happen. Like, just make time for your family. And then, like, when your son or daughter is a little bit older, you'll be able to find the time again. But, like, right now, like, enjoy the baby and enjoy, like, that whole thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
definitely I wasn't like in hindsight when I look back, like, if I'm not like moving and exercising a lot, it does affect my mental health. The kidney stone thing was terrible because I was in pain. I was on pain medicine, which is like obviously really hard on the body and, not a good feeling. And then not being able to really exercise because of the pain and everything was pretty terrible.
Yeah,
So.
and the reason I originally asked that was just like with those couple of periods where you weren't running as much as you are now, or you weren't able to run at all. Like, did you kind of feel yourself going back into kind of that mindset you had in your 20s, where you were just missing that movement and that exercise mentally?
Yeah, but there wasn't like a period where I was like I didn't want to exercise. Like in my 20s, like I didn't, or like my early 20s and
Right.
teens, I didn't want to exercise. But like once I, started, um, I never wanted to stop. So, um, and I still like if I can't run, something happens, like say I get hit by a car or something, like I'll find something to do. Like it will not be like I just stop exercising because I can't run. Like I've done a lot of like physical things in my life, like It's funny to look at now, but like when I was in my mid 20s or like I guess late 20s, I got really into like lifting weights. And like I used to go to the gym twice a day and lift weights. I lifted more weights than I did running. And that's a really delicate balance because when you're trying to build a lot of muscle, you can't really run like high mileage. And so like I had found that like I could run 7 miles a day and still put on muscle, but I couldn't run more than 7 miles. So like for a couple of years, like I was only running 7 miles a day because I was like trying to like get big. And I have like, pictures of myself like totally jacked. Like my goal was like, I'm going to bench 3 plates. And I benched three, I did 3 plates and then I was like, okay, never doing that again. That was super heavy. But, I worked at that goal for like, a long time to be able to do it. Um, and even like when I first got hired at the fire department, like I used to be able to like bench, 225 was like my warm up. Now, like, I probably couldn't put up 225 once. It's just different goals, different, what I was doing physically. But I've always been doing something like, physical ever since I started back in my early 20s.
Were your parents super motivated and driven like you are? And it sounds like, I mean, even back when you were getting into strength training, obviously like that takes a lot of commitment and a lot of work and a lot of
Right.
motivation to show up every day. Were your parents like that, or where do you think that mindset kind of came from?
So, I mean, he's a very intense individual. Um, but he was more driven when it came to like work because he owned his own business and he had like 120 employees. So, it was a pretty big business and he was like a complete like workaholic, just I mean, he probably worked 100 hours a week, though my whole life. And so he definitely instilled in me like at a very young age the like importance of hard work. Um, Not necessarily exercise, hard work, but just like the fact that you have to work hard every day and that like that's the only way you get rewarded. He did not like laziness. He did not like, taking the softer, easier route. And so at a young age, that was definitely instilled in me. And then, when I got through my little rough patch, which again, like, started with them sending me away because I was a bad kid. And then like, kind of progressed into college and stuff, even though I did well in college and it wasn't such a bad thing. Like, um, you know, that instillment of like hard work and like getting rewarded with hard work was definitely from my dad. My mom, she's real positive and everything. She's not like necessarily intense like my dad, but she's like definitely somebody that can't sit still. Like she's always on the go.
Mm.
Even now she's like 75 and she has a hard time sitting still. She's the type of person you call up and you're like, "Hey, what you doing today?" And she's 75 and she has like 15 things she's doing today. And just super active and which is great because that's what you want to see in your elderly parents is like that they're just nonstop moving and doing stuff because then they'll stay younger. So, and then
That's amazing.
yeah, my
Do you
mom's,
do you stay in contact? Go ahead.
go ahead. Do I stay in contact
No,
with
I was just gonna ask if you still stayed in contact with. Yeah.
my mom? Well, yeah, she lives a mile from me, and so I talk to her like every day, and I'm over at her. Her husband died like about 6 years ago, and so I'm like, I go over there all the time and do like all the things she can't do. Like yesterday, I went up there and like I had to open some jars for her, and I had to like pick up some boxes for her, and I had to set up her sprinkler system, and all the little. She makes like a honeydew list for me, and I go over there and do it all. So yeah, my mom and I are still very close.
That's amazing. And how about your dad?
My dad passed away last year, so that's a
Oh man.
that's yeah, it's a hard situation I've been dealing with for like the last year, because he was like my best friend and obviously like my mentor and navigating life without your best friend is hard because so many things in my life I want to talk to him about, and now it's like I can't, and so it's hard. It's definitely a challenge. I don't have like that sounding board that I'd like to have when I have issues or business opportunities or whatever, it's like he was the person I would call, and now it's like I don't have that. So, but I try to still every day like try to make him proud, and I still work really hard to in his memory because he wouldn't want me to like give up or sit in a pity party. I mean, I still feel sad and depressed, and actually his 1 year anniversary was Monday, and I was emotional wreck, but I still got out there and ran 20 miles and still like pushed myself because I knew if I didn't, then that would be not so good. So when you live life like as consistency is your number one rule, like even in the really hard points in life, like it pushes you through. So even though like yeah, I just wanted to sit on the couch and cry, like I went out and ran and I cried the whole run, like just tears, just like but I still ran, and I guarantee you, like it made me feel a lot better in the end, because I got that physical activity and that's what my body needed. So.
Man, well, I'm sorry to hear about that. That's I know that's never an easy thing, especially when you're that close with somebody and they have that big of a role in your life. But I mean, it sounds like you really got like the best features of both of them. Like you got the work ethic, you got the drive from your dad, and you've got that constant movement from your mom. And now they created Andrew Glaze.
Right.
He's an yeah, he's the amazing human that you are now. So that's awesome, dude. So let's go back to like early days of running again. What were some of your early races like? Did you start with like a 5K, half marathon? Where did all that start?
Yeah, I did a couple 5Ks and 10Ks like locally. I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and it's a big run city. So, I don't have like intense memories of it all, but I know that I did like a bunch of like 5Ks, 10Ks. I did that race, Hood to Coast. Have you ever heard of that? It's like the
Yeah.
original Ragnar race where you run from like Mount Hood all the way to the Oregon coast, aka the beach, but it's not really the beach because in Oregon it's a coast. Um, I did that, and that was kind of cool. That was like one of my first like experiences into like endurance running because you had to run like three different legs, and I think it was like 7, 5, and 4 or something. But like that was a lot of miles for me at the time. I started training for the Portland Marathon, and I had gotten myself up to like 18 miles, and then got injured, because I didn't know what I was doing. I just was going out running. Um, and then um, I mean, that's kind of like where it was like at as far as running goes. Like I just did like the occasional race, but it was mostly just running like every day and just having fun with it. But at the time, like back then, like I was still in that mindset of like run as hard and as fast as you can for until like your body you like can't handle it. So back then in my 20s and like late 20s, I was a little faster than I am now. So and I am a little competitive. So I was trying to compete. I eventually like I got into like triathlons for a little while. I did a bunch of like I never did like an Ironman, but I did like a lot of the smaller ones. Got into that, and then I got really into half marathons for a little while. I did like a lot of half marathons. Um, I really liked that distance for probably until I was like 30, like 32 or 33. I think like half marathons were kind of like my jam. And then and so my PR is a 124, which I look back now and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I ever ran that fast. But I used to run like 6 minute miles, like when I was like younger, like
Yeah.
like just like that was like my thing, like a 6 minute mile. Like if I dipped into the fives, I always like felt good. Um, but obviously that's changed.
124 is very respectable.
Yeah, it had 1,000 feet of vert too, so it wasn't like a flat half.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So, I mean, again, never had a coach, no training, just like, just doing my thing. So, um, yeah, I mean, that's sort of like the origin. And then like when I started doing those halves, and I found that somehow got introduced to like the Xterra Trail Series, which is like it's like a dirt trail, like half marathons and stuff out here. And I tried that and really liked it. I was like, oh wow, like they have races on dirt. I had no idea. And so I did a bunch of like, I remember they were all like weird Ks. Like one was like a 22K, one was like an 18K, one was like a 15K. I didn't even know what a K was. But like, I remember one, like, I thought I was such a badass because I had to run through like a little stream. And I remember like at the end, like taking pictures of my legs and there's like mud all over them. And I was like, I thought I was so cool that I had to like, 'cause, like when you go from road running to like trail running, all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's like there's rocks and there's uphill and there's like streams and it's like, it, I just thought it was so cool. And that sort of like opened that like gateway of like, oh, like this is a little bit more fun than running on the road. Um, and so then I started kind of going down that pathway of like trail running and like doing, and then it's like all these trail runs were like in these beautiful places like Malibu and like Newport Beach and San Diego. And I was like, this is so much better than running these little half marathons in like the local cities. So yeah, I got into that. And I remember like at one point sitting at the start line and everyone was like whispering about like some kid that was going to win it. And they're like, look at his shoes. Those are called Hokas. And this was like the first year Hoka had like come out. And they looked so stupid. They were like these big, like, they looked like marshmallows on his feet. And I at the time wore like minimalist Brooks, just for like speed and like traction. I can't even remember what they were called, but like no padding, just for like running fast on the dirt. And I'm like looking at these shoes like those are the dumbest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And then like eventually now it's like that's all I wear. So, but I can still remember like, the first pair of Hokas I ever saw was some like random trail running kid that was like super fast and then that won the trail run that day. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I've done a lot of like endurance things. So I've done normal races, triathlons, trail runs, and then I got really into obstacle course racing. And that's sort of like the gateway that got me into ultras because I ended up doing like that 24-hour tough mudder called World's Toughest Mudder. Um, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and the world's toughest. So I like signed up for that and I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna have to run like really far because I'm gonna be running for 24 hours straight. How do I train for that? So then I started going down the ultra like, well, I better run a 50K, to like get ready for this World's Toughest Mudder. And so I ended up running a 50K to like train for the World's Toughest Mudder, and you know, the rest is history. I basically was like, once I like opened that, I was like, obstacle course racing, cool, but I'm gonna go down this whole ultra path, and then that's pretty much where I've been since. So yeah.
Man, how long was that? How long was that 24 hour? The Spartan one or the Tough Mudder?
Uh, well, so it was like a loop. I can't. I want to say it was like a 5 mile loop with like 20 obstacles per loop. Um, Something like that for 24 hours. But it was like the first year I did it twice. The first year I did it, they had this crazy windstorm. It was in Vegas, and it was like the nastiest thing you've like 80-mile-an-hour winds. I remember at one point I had to
Jeez.
walk backwards, and I was wearing ski goggles because the wind was so bad that like it was just like shredding everybody. Um, they actually it was so gnarly they made like a documentary about how gnarly it was. So I don't even know if I got an ultra's worth of miles that day just because it like the wind knocked over a bunch of obstacles. I mean, it was just like this like disaster.
Damn.
And then I went back and did it the next time, and I ended up getting like hypothermia because it was so cold and didn't really do well that time either. But like I still tried it. But at the end of the day, yeah, being like really cold weather and then being in a wetsuit for 24 hours as you're in and
Mm.
out of water is as my body was not. This is before ice plunges and all my ice bath stuff. Had I known what I know now, I would have been ice plunging like before World's Toughest Mudder and getting my body ready to be cold, and I would have like known how to like deal with the cold. But at you know, we're talking 10 years ago or something. I did not know how to deal with it at all. And yeah, my body shut down and like I was like, I don't want to be cold. And, you know, that was that. It's the early origins of my um, mental strength journey, which wasn't always so good. Like the mental strength I demonstrate now in life wasn't always like where I am like now. It's taken a long time, just like in running, it's taken me a long time to be able to run as far as I do. It's taken me a long time to work on my brain to be able to like really understand how it works and like stay strong. Um, because when I first started doing ultras, there was a lot of weak moments that I gave into just because I wasn't strong enough to push through. So, which is part of being a human, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I personally love about running so much is it's just the most tangible way that I've been able to find to see your mental strength grow over time because you could just use a distance or a certain race to show how strong mentally you are. Do you feel like that comes with age, or do you feel like it's more of a byproduct of just all these events that you've done? Because I always hear people say that like running 100 miles is like life in a day because you have all the ups and downs and it's a roller coaster of emotions and you experience everything you would in life, but in 24 hours. So do you think that it comes from that mental strength that you've got now? Do you think a lot of it just comes from all these challenges that you've done?
I mean, it definitely helps. I had a lot of really good races, and then I had like a period in my life where like I wasn't mentally strong and I DNF'd a bunch, and now I'm back on an upswing. I think like you know a lot of like the ice baths and stuff that I do on a daily basis now to like try to like force myself to do things I don't want to do. Like I think that helps. Like doing challenging things where you really don't want to do it, but you force yourself to do it. Like it helps build that mental strength. And I don't think I knew that puzzle piece when I first started doing ultras. I knew that they were hard, but um, I didn't necessarily know how my body would like the whole roller coaster. It took me a little bit longer to figure out, like, because when you run like a half marathon or something like that, like you might feel a little weak at some points, but like you normally feel pretty strong through the whole race. And so like when I first started doing ultras, like I wasn't used to like the shitty parts, you know? And so if it got too shitty, like sometimes I would just be like, all right, fuck this. And like, you know, you come up with some excuse like, and then you know, you quit. Um, and then through like doing lots of ultras, you know, I discovered that the shitty parts only last so long and that like eventually you start feeling good again. But then you're going to feel shitty again. And like, you know, kind of like you said, you know, 100 miles in a day or your life in a day. But then I've also discovered that sometimes in an ultra, like you don't ever feel good again. And like, you know, maybe you feel shitty for like 60 miles. So then what do you do in that situation? Like, how do you push through? And like, are you just chasing the, hopefully it's going to feel good again? Or are you just kind of embracing the misery and like embracing that it's super hard and that's like why you signed up? Um, for me, it's like a lot of self-discovery and like when I'm really suffering out there and I really don't feel good, I I just sort of have conversations with myself like, well, what am I learning right now? What is my body trying to teach me? And even if I don't feel good, like it's kind of like that reminder of like, well, like you signed up for this, like you wanted to do this, you're not at work, you know, this is like this is this is what you wanted. So it's like that reminding myself that like even if I feel like shit, like there's a reason why I feel like shit, and it's like I should embrace it and just sort of like you know, like wrap myself in that terribleness and just remind myself like this is like that type 2 fun where it's like it might not seem fun right now, but we're going to look back on it and say, wow, that was really fun, you know? Um, and I just kind of have to remind myself that, you know, that's where I'm at right there. And, you know, if I just keep moving forward, eventually it's going to be over, you know? So, even if I'm just in the like worst pain cave, worst hurt box that I could possibly be in, my goal is always just to keep moving forward. And, the experience has taught me that if I do that, eventually you get to that finish line. You might not have the best time, you might not be super satisfied with your result, but I think at the end of the day, like finishing, regardless of your time, is the most satisfying part. So, I have really, really good races and I have really, really terrible races, but 95% of people don't ever ask me what my time was. All they care about is that I finished. Um, and I think unless you're like a professional or like you're like super, super competitive, most people don't care. Like um, all they want to see is that you finished because that shows that like, you followed through and you didn't quit. So um, I just remind myself of that. Like, hey, it's like we're just gonna finish this thing. I don't care if the plane has no engines and we're just gonna cruise in and just crash at the finish line. Like that's what we're gonna do. So sometimes I gotta crash the plane into the finish line.
I love that, man. I think that's such a powerful. Everything you just said is a very powerful realization of like, that there's gonna be a point in the race where it's just everything hurts. You don't want to keep going. It's so shitty, and you want to quit. How long do you think it took for you to like in those hard moments to actually tell yourself that and be like, okay, we knew this was coming. Like we know we can get through it because it sounds like early on. And I feel like most people probably early on in their running careers, like when they get to that point, they're like, oh shit, they don't have an answer for those questions.
Right.
How long do you think it took you before you kind of realized that?
I mean, it's several years. It wasn't. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's probably why a good point. Like a lot of people like get pacers and crew and all that stuff because a lot of times when you're in that like darkness, like if you have like a crew or like a pacer, they can kind of like help you through it. Like their brain is not like fried yet, and so they can, hey, like kind of pull you out of it and like kind of like, hey, everything's gonna be okay, and like give you that like reminder, like when I'm out on the race and I see somebody really like struggling or like want to quit, like I give them the Andy Glaze talk of like, hey man, like you signed up for this, right? Like this is something you worked hard for, you wanted to do this, and right now you feel like shit, but like if you quit, you're gonna feel worse. Just go walk. Go walk for 10 miles. Who cares? Like, unless they're in like a situation where they're like, chasing cutoffs or something like that. Most people, like have plenty of time to finish the race. And if they just go walk a couple miles, it might seem like a defeat to have to walk a couple miles or do whatever, but a lot of times you can find your legs again. Um, or then my other big advice is I'm always like, hey man, go take a 10-minute nap. Um, it's amazing what a 10-minute nap can do for you in a 100-mile race, especially if it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and you just feel like so defeated and you feel like you have no energy and like you just want to give up. Letting the brain rest for 10 minutes, like, is a game changer. It will make you feel so much better. So, I try to do that. I mean, I think for me, like at first, my first 100, I had a crew and a pacer and all that. And, but like I've progressed now, like where I try not to use them because I want it to be harder, and I want to like rely more on
Oh
my
my
own
gosh.
my own mental strength, like um, because like man, those weak points when it's just you have to stay strong because there's nobody to like coach you out of it. It's I'm sure. I mean, I did that Cocodona 350 like a few weeks ago where I ran 100 miles, had a day off, and then ran 250 miles, and I did the whole thing, uncrewed, unpaced, and I was just out there a lot of miles just completely by myself, in the middle of nowhere, just like moving forward. And man, I vlogged it, so I mean, I know a lot of people like watch my vlog and whatnot, but I had some like super low points, especially during the 250, where like I could not stay awake. I mean, there was one point where it took me several hours to go 10 miles. And I would go a mile and I would just like literally just fall asleep for like 10 minutes. And then I would go a mile and just fall asleep for like 10 minutes. I just could not stay awake. And, but I knew that I just had to just keep moving and eventually, then I felt better. But, yeah, it was a real low point in the race. I didn't have anybody to like, pep talk me out of it. I just had to like use all the tools I had to like, make it happen. So, um, that helps build mental strength too, though, like because I'm relying on only myself.
Dude, that's so incredible that you don't use a crew or a pacer. I mean, now getting to know you more, it makes a lot of sense. But that just makes everything you're doing all the more impressive. Do you think you called it Coco Canyons, right? Because it was
Right. Yeah.
Cocodona and then Black Canyon.
No, no. It's just called Canyons by
Is that?
UTMB. But it's like the
Oh,
UTMB.
okay.
Yeah, it's called Canyons by UTMB. And it's in Auburn. It's basically we had to run Western States in reverse. So I had to run uphill instead of downhill in the
Oh,
Western
okay.
States course. Yeah, it had 17,000 feet of vert. It was gnarly, and it was like 97 degrees. So it was a real fun start to Cocodona, I'll tell you.
Do you think that the Coco Canyons 350? Do you think or Coco Canyon 350, whatever the name of it was?
Yeah.
Do you think that 350-mile adventure is that the hardest thing you've done to date?
Yeah, yeah, I would say mentally and physically the hardest thing I've ever done, um, without a doubt. Like it taught me a whole another level of like what I'm capable of, and how to get through really, really like difficult times. Um, yeah, there's nothing has ever even come close on any level. That was yeah, logistically, every aspect of it was very, very challenging.
One question I really have been wanting to know. Well, first, before I ask this, I want to know what sparked the 100-mile week streak because you're on. Is it 167 miles or 167 weeks right now?
Yeah, I mean, tonight, if everything goes to plan, I will hit 168 weeks in a row of running over 100 miles. So, I mean, I think what sparked it was it was right around when COVID started, and so there wasn't like all my races got canceled, and so I didn't have anywhere to put my energy, and so I like it just sort of started as like, well, this is kind of hard. Like, we'll do this, and this will be similar to like racing because you can't really do 100-mile weeks and then like run ultras because the ultras then get in the way of the 100-mile weeks. Um, and I did it for like a couple weeks, and then I got really crazy, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna run 1,000 miles in a month. And so then I ran 1,000 miles in a month, which there's like 200
Oh my gosh.
200 plus mile weeks, and I was number one in the world in Strava, and I
Holy
was like,
shit.
you know what? I'm going to do that again. And so then I ran 1,000 miles the next month. And so then I was like 8 weeks into running 200-mile weeks. And then I did that for 18 weeks straight of 200-mile weeks. And then I ran Cocodona the first year. So that would have been 3 years ago. And then after that, it was like, after Cocodona, like I couldn't continue on the 200-mile streak. So I did 18 weeks straight, and then I bumped it back down to 100 miles, and then have been at 100-mile weeks since then. Um, and normally it's like 140 to 180, somewhere around there. I don't normally have a 100-mile week, but everybody understands what a 100-mile week is, so that's just what I say it is. Yeah, it's something crazy. Like I've run like 23,000 miles in 3 years or something like that. Because I think I had two 8,000 mile years and then one 7,000 mile year. Um, it's a lot of miles, a lot of time on the feet.
Dude, that is incredible. I didn't know any of that. All I knew about was the 167 weeks of 100 miles a week. My gosh, my mind is just blown right now. Like, like, what do you think allows you to do that, like physically? Because I know you run. Are you all on the trails? Or are you on the road? Because obviously, I think that makes a difference. But like, how is your body so resilient to be able to keep going through all those miles?
I mean, I do both. The advantage of being like an ultra runner is I normally like run on the road to my trails, and then I'll run in my trails and then run home. So it's like it's a combination, but I mean, I prefer the trails. I think, trails are better on the body, and then use like more complex muscles and everything like that. Um, I mean, I think the reality is like because I'm not professional, because like I'm not like out there like competing um, for like the top spot or anything like that. Like I can just be wrecked all the time, and I've just sort of like embraced that. Like I'm always sore. I always wake up like and get out of bed like an 80-year-old man, until like my body, until I like, warm up a little bit. Like my body's like, oh man, you like killed yourself yesterday. Let's take a day off, like every day, and then I kill myself again, and then it's just been going on for years and years and years. So. Um, Kind of like, like Candace did it for, 200 days, and she would talk about, I don't know if you're familiar with her streak,
Hmm.
an ultra every day. And she talked
Yep.
about how like it got easier, on some level. Like, I mean, on some level, it's so routine, and it's like I'm so consistent with it that like it's not necessarily hard. It just is like a normal thing that I do now. And so my body just sort of feels that way. But I think in general, I run slow. Especially, I mean, on trails and stuff. I also mixed with um, the high mileage. I get like high vert too. So like I normally average somewhere like around probably like 100 miles of vert per mile. So I'm running up and down hills a lot too. Um, I like to at least get like 10,000 feet of vert per week, which is a fair amount. So that slows you down too, but it also like builds a lot of strength and like it's helpful for ultras. But that's the $1 million question is everyone's like, how do you do it? And why aren't you injured? And why, I don't, I mean, I do get injured. I pull muscles. I have like, I get like sore in weird areas, and like sometimes it takes like a week, a month to like have that soreness go away. But like, I've just found that if I just keep running, eventually, it gets better. Like, but I've had all sort. I mean, in 3 years, I've had all sorts of weird things happen to me. Like, I've torn my hamstring a couple times. I've, hurt my ankle. I've, all the normal like running type things I've had happen. I fell and broke a couple ribs once. Like, I do fall a lot, so I get a lot of fall injuries. Um, and then like my job is like super physical as well, so I've hurt myself at work a couple times and had to kind of like keep going through it. Right now, I have a broken finger. I don't know if you can see. It's like all crooked
Oh yeah.
because I broke it at work. So but like my whole life, I try to tell people like there's no like easy way to quantify it, but my whole life is revolved around recovery on some level. I do sauna, I do, cold plunge. I take a shit ton of supplements that may or may not work. Who knows? I'm not a doctor. I drink a ridiculous amount of water every day. I don't really eat any sugar. I'm a vegan, so all the like, some people will tell you that's horrible for you, but it works for me. So like all these little micro things, when you add them all together, maybe that's why. Maybe I'm a genetic freak. Maybe I'm just lucky. I don't know the answer. Honestly, I wish I could tell you, but somehow it just keeps going on. But personally, I thought it would end by now. So something's got to happen where it's got to stop. So uh, I don't know. It hasn't yet though. But when it does, I was talking to my buddy during Cocodona, and he's like, "What you need to do is get a bunch of people, and we'll all go out to the like the Forrest Gump site, where he's like in the movie, and he's like running, and
Yeah.
everyone's behind him, and then I'll just stop and I'll say, I think I'm gonna go home now, and just that'll be the end of the streak, something like that. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I mean the thing is, if the streak ends, it's not like I'm gonna quit running or something like that. I'll just keep doing crazy shit, like yeah, keep racing, keep having fun. So
Do you know if that's is there like a Guinness World Record for most consecutive weeks of 100 miles? I'm assuming you've looked this up before.
I haven't, because I'm not doing it as like like I don't really care. Like it was never like a thing where I was like trying to break.
That makes it even better.
I I've never looked into it. I know like Guinness charges you money to like do records and stuff, and I'm like,
Mm.
I mean, it's kind of like people like they're always like my ranking in Strava because a lot of times I'm like kind of high, and like I said like a couple times I was like top one or like number one in the world, but like it was so exhausting because I had to go in there and like report all the cheaters. Um, and I
Mm.
was spending all this time reporting cheaters, and it was like it took away the joy of actually like running the high mileage. And so like now it's like I'll be like say I'll be like 12th place, and maybe there's like two or three cheaters in there. Maybe I'm really 10th, but at the end of the day, I don't really care if I'm 12th or if I'm 10th or if I'm 20th. Like I know I'm running far, and I'm running further than a lot of people. So like to me, it like really doesn't matter. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe I'm up there. Maybe there's some other crazy guy out there running 100-mile weeks. I don't know. I was on a run today and I met this guy. Um, he's an ultra runner and we've run races together, but we've never really connected. And we ran a couple miles out on the trails, and then he was telling me yeah, he's run 13 miles every day for 3 years. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So there's always like there's just crazy people everywhere. Um, just a lot of times they don't like maybe like talk about it as much, or like I just happen to have like this like insane following on social media so more people know about it. But if I didn't have that, then it would just be still like 3 years ago I had I probably had like 2,000 people following me on social media. Maybe 5,000, I don't know, not very many. And so like when I started the streak, like it wasn't like I was doing it to get like social media fame or like whatever, but over time then more and more people hear about it, and more people see it, and it becomes more of a thing. But um at the time I wasn't like it was just Andy being crazy like I always am, so you know no big deal. But now it's like more people know about it because all these people follow me. So
Yeah, that I did want to ask you about social media and your content. Like, do you, or I guess first off, what initially got you into creating content and just like posting it? Like, was it just for the fact like it was fun to document stuff, or like what got you into it initially?
well, I mean, I really liked Instagram because I really like taking pictures. And so like, when it started, Instagram was like all pictures. And so like I would spend all this
Yep.
time going out, running, and then like taking the perfect picture for that one run. And I mean, I really like that. I never really grew social media wise because when you just take pictures, it's just kind of like your immediate friends or like other runners. But um, when Instagram switched to Reels, like then it was like a way all of a sudden to like reach a way bigger audience. And I don't really
Hmm.
even think I knew about it, like that was like what going to happen when I started making them. But I think like I was kind of like an early adopter to Reels. Um, there weren't like a lot of people making them at the time, and you know, I just started doing stupid little like running videos and stuff. And when Reels first started, it was just all mimic shit. So it's like there'd be a
Hmm.
song, and then everybody would give their flavor. It would be like the housewife, the weightlifter, and I would just
Right.
like do the running one. And it was just crazy like how fast like I started growing because of that. But yeah, I mean, and it was like it was fun. Like I was literally just having fun with it, because I run so much and I think about running so much that it was like easy to like make a little quick running video. But then I downloaded TikTok, and I started like taking my race videos, like making race videos and putting them on TikTok, and it was more like who Andy is and not like making dumb videos, like of me, mimicking words or something like that. And like that went super viral. And so then like I was like, oh, well, so on TikTok I'll make my race videos and I'll do like, all running type stuff. And then Instagram was still like the dumb, mimic stuff. And then at some point I was just like, I'm just gonna just be Andy on Instagram too, and like if it doesn't do well, like who cares? Like again, it doesn't matter to me because I'm not like sponsored or anything. So I did like a transition where I went from like making kind of like the silly videos to like just me giving advice and me talking and just who I am, and like it just played really really well. So on both platforms I kind of like, I'm not like massive like some guys, but like for running, I'm like I think I'm kind of up there for like followers and stuff. Definitely on TikTok, I'm one of like the top TikTok running accounts, but um yeah, I mean it's just been kind of fun, and like I've obviously done it for a lot of years, so I have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience, and it I know there's a lot of people out there that don't have that, and there's like a learning curve, and if I can kind of help people navigate some of the treacherous waters, then, I hope that's good. But it's also like really nice to inspire people and, get people working out and active and all that sort of stuff as well. That's made it a
That's
lot.
amazing, dude.
Yeah. It's, just like silly things like my dinner miles and stuff like that. I got people
Yeah.
tagging me in dinner miles like all over the entire, I think I have all the continents, like all over the entire world, people have tagged me in that. And that's cool to see that people are literally running all over the world thinking about feeding their legs, and just some silly thing that I say when I run at night. It's definitely humbling.
That's cool, man. Well, I think when you are authentic and genuine like you are, and you just document your journey and you try to provide as much value as possible, people are attracted to that kind of thing. And it's pretty clear that that formula works of just authenticity and providing some sort of value to people, whether it's inspiration or tips and tricks for how to run ultra marathons or just how to recover better or whatever it might be. So I'm assuming that you're just going to keep growing and keep accumulating and these followers and a big audience. And my next question would be then, like, do you have a goal with your content or your social media, or you're just going to keep growing the audience, keep inspiring more people? Like, do you have any intentions of like building any kind of like brand or merch or anything like that to go along with it?
I mean, not really. I haven't, I have people send me all these like shirt ideas and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of cool, but like, man, my time is so limited that, trying to like turn it into like some sort of like selling t-shirt thing. My dad would kill me if I said this, but it's like, my I don't need like extra money, and so it's like, and he'd be like, you always need extra money, but it's like, and that's probably true. You can always make more money, but my focus in life isn't making money on that level. It's like I have a job for that pays me well, and my motivation on social media is just to like inspire. And although I have a lot of friends that have tons of deals and brands and do all that stuff, and I like totally respect them because maybe they're not in the same financial situation that I'm in because I have a good job. Like I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that's like, wear this hat because Andy Glaze wears it, and it'll make you run faster or something like that. It's just I don't like to see that shit on social media, even if it's my friends doing it. And so I don't want to be the guy that does it. It's just not my thing. If I were to like take some sort of like sponsorship or something like that, it would have to be some sort of like some experience, something that's not like financially tangible. Um, Something that like, or something that inspired me or that I would think would be cool. Like if I get like, I don't know, like if I got like a race entry free or something like that, like then I get to go run the race, then to me that's like worth it, even though I'm like financially benefiting. To me, it's like I get to run the race. So it's like that would be the benefit. But it's like if I'm selling you goo and I'm like, hey, buy goo, it's like, whatever. And I make a lot of videos with a lot of products, but like it's all, I mean, I'm not getting any of the products. I buy them all, and then, it's what I use. So I'm sure those brands love me, like my BOA shorts. I wear all these crazy shorts. I'm sure BOA loves me, but like,
Yep.
I'm not going to take any money from BOA because, one, they're like $40 shorts. Like, you know, what are they really going to offer me? Like free shorts? Like, I mean, you think I'm worth $40? Like, I mean, it's like everyone's like, oh, you should be sponsored by Hoka. Why? Because you think that $100 pair of shoes like can buy me? Like, no. Like, I'm first of all, I'm way more expensive than that. But like, I just it's just not my thing. You know, I'm like, but you know, it might change. I don't know. Like, you know, I got Logan Paul DM'd me and he wants me to like run a marathon in a Prime Energy suit, and I might
Oh
do
my
that
gosh.
because I think it'd be like really funny, you know, to like wear one of those big inflatable like Prime Energy suits and like run a marathon and like make a video about it. And like, you know, when Logan Paul DMs you, you're like, that's kind of cool. Like, how does Logan Paul even
Yeah,
know,
dude.
like, even know me? But um, the power of TikTok, I guess. So, and then my kids think like that it's like the coolest thing ever that like, you know, they like Prime sent me all this like free, like sent my kids all this like, you know, free Prime stuff like hats and bottles, and they're like in hog heaven because you know, they think it's really cool that Logan Paul sent me this stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I might do it. I might not. Like, I think it's like, to me, that would be like funny and like, you know, it'd be a good story and my kids would like it. So, you know, something like that might tickle my fancy, but like, I'm not going to be like sponsored by Prime. It's not like all of a sudden I'm going to, you know, start wearing Prime shirts and like telling people to drink Prime. Like, I'm going to make a funny video and then like move on. So, if it happens. But it's, you know,
Dude, that's super super admirable. Like that's very admirable. Like I personally don't know of anybody that's creating social media content that's like saying no to brands, saying no to like any kind of sponsorship or even free stuff. Like it's a very hard thing to say no to because I mean who doesn't like free stuff? But
right.
I mean I think that just goes to show how genuine you are and like you're sticking to your guns of like I'm just me. I'm just here to run and inspire people and smile along the way. So
Yeah.
it's super contagious and it's like it's inspiring to me as well.
Well, I mean, that's the value in my
One
life, though. It
Go ahead.
provides me value too, right? Like to like not have to take it or not, you know, do it. Like, you know, everybody inspires me too. Like I inspire people, and then, you know, I get all these messages, like, and you know, people reverse inspire me as well. So it's cool.
Dude, these ultra runners are too damn modest out here. You guys, I think that's part of the reason why ultra running. I mean, it's a newer sport in general, but I feel like that's part of the reason why it's not like crazy popular is because every ultra runner I've ever met, they're so modest that they don't like to brag about these things. Like they don't like to go out and be like, yeah, I ran 100 miles. Like you have to pry it out of them most of the time. I don't know. It's such a cool sport. And I think there's obviously something to ultra running and just running in general that like it makes people humble and more genuine in some aspect. But I don't know. I love it, man. One thing I really am curious about, which I'm sure you get this question a lot, but you mentioned you have a job.
Yeah.
You mentioned you have kids. I know you've got a wife or a girlfriend. How do you balance all of that with running this many miles and doing all of these things well?
The balance is it's that's probably the hardest part. It's like way harder than running. The short answer is I wake up super early and run before everybody wakes up, and I do that both at home and at work. Um, you know, at home I wake up at like 3:30, and then, you know, normally obviously the kids wake up and then go to school. So, you know, I can run all the way pretty much. I run pretty much till like lunchtime. And then, you know, the kids get off school and then I have the whole afternoon with them. Or if they're not, um, if it's like a weekend or something like that, I'll run until they get up because my kids are like 12, 11, and 9. So they're starting to like be at that teenage age where they like sleep in real late and they stay up real late. So,
Mm.
I take advantage of that. I'm like, yeah, sleep in totally, you know, and I go and I'm running. So um, I run a lot when they're asleep, and then I do 2 runs a day, which is like an easy way to like bump up your mileage. You know, like tonight I'll probably run like 7 or 8 miles, and like kind of like just a short run in the evening, and the longer runs like in the morning. So when you add them together, you get more miles. At work, it's like kind of the same thing. Like we run 911 calls 24/7, but we tend to be like slower in the middle of the night. So I'm able to like I wake up early. We don't have to like at work. We have like set times we have to wake up. Like everybody has to wake up by 7 a.m. And so I'll wake up at 3:30 and I'll run till 7. And then everybody else, we're allowed to work out from like 8 to 10. So then I'll be like, oh, well, I'm gonna work out again, and I'll run again from 8 to 10. And then like we're allowed to work out again in the evening, and I'll run again in the evening. So, but again, people call 911 all the time. So at work it's harder because even though I can work out from 8 to 10, we might run 3 911 calls from 8 to 10, and I might run 0. Or like we might be running calls all night or have a fire or something, and I'll run 0. So, you know, normally I can get like miles at work, but like it's not as consistent just because the schedule is not consistent. But I can always make it up at home.
And just to specify, you're a firefighter, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fire captain, so it's like I'm in charge of like a whole station, which also makes it a little bit easier because I'm the boss. So I get to like make the schedule and do all that stuff, and obviously at my crew I make exercise a priority. Now, not all of them are runners, but like they're lifting weights, they're doing something physical if I'm doing something physical. So if the guys know, like, if you're going to be on my shift, like, exercise is a priority because I want fit firefighters on my crew because it's a physical job.
When you're running at work, because I'm assuming you have to stay pretty close to the firehouse or the fire station.
Close.
Do you just run like laps around it, or?
Yeah. I'm in like a downtown area, so it's just like a grid, and I have a radio, and I just literally I call them fire station loops. And I literally just run around the fire station like so many times. Like I've probably run around that fire station like 100,000 times, And if we get a call, like it comes through the radio, and I just sprint back to the station, and I can normally get there in like not very like under a minute, and just jump right in the engine and we take off. Because like it's a 2-story station, so all our living quarters are upstairs. So by the time the call goes out, they all have to walk downstairs to the rig, and I'm running, and I just run back, and we pretty much get there at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, it works out well for me. But I've done it for so many years, like it's become, routine over there as well. And everybody knows, like, I'm the crazy running captain, I mean, that's just the way it is. So.
How far is that loop? Probably like 0.1, 0.2 miles or something.
I'll do there's sidewalks, and I'll do like I get kind of bored, so I'll do like all sorts. I'll like go up a street, come back down. I'll do a loop around the station. I stay within probably like 0.15 at all times, but I kind of will like do like different things to try to like make it quite not so boring. But the thing is like it's a college campus across the street, so I can kind of run like a box. But if there's like a call, I can just run straight back through like through the college, or like over grass or something like that to get to the station. I do loops, but like line of sight is always like quicker. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You got to host like an annual Andy Glaze Fire Station Ultra or something.
So like one year I worked New Year's Eve, and I started running at like 6 p.m. and ran all the way until like the first or like 12:01, and I got like I think I got like 30 miles or 31 miles or whatever, and it was like we didn't get one call the whole night. I couldn't believe it, which like never happens.
Wow.
And I just ran the whole time, just over and over. And I had a little aid station set up with like food and water, and I was like eating it, and like, the whole time, of course, I'm like, please, can someone call 911 so I can just have a break, but nobody called, not until after I was done.
Damn.
So, yeah.
That's funny. Well, if you make it like an official event, I'll be the first one to sign up for that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna like I don't know if you saw, probably not, but like for my birthday I ran 100 miles. And I invited a bunch of people like to like join me, and like a ton of people showed up, and everyone kind of ran like little sections. Like people would run like 10 miles, 8 miles, 3 miles. One guy showed up and ran like a quarter mile just to run. And I think I'm going to turn it into like a bigger thing every year. And, like it's kind of a fun course because we run from my house in Redlands, and then I have a house in San Clemente at the beach. And it's like 100 miles from house to house. And so
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna try to turn it into like a bigger thing where I get more people to come join. Um, and like I'm sure a couple crazy people will run the whole 100 miles, but I'll lay out the course and then it's like a lot of easy access points, and we'll see if we can get a big old Forrest Gump like group running like this like ultra on my birthday. But yeah, last year it was crazy. Like people even like showed up with like water and just waited for me to run by, and like it was like a big thing. I had like a Garmin in reach on me so people could track where I was, and yeah, I ran the whole thing. So it's pretty easy too because you're running kind of like flat downhill to the beach, and it's like it's not a super hard 100, but it's still 100 miles.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. What events or challenges or races do you have coming up here in 2023?
So I've already done 8 ultras this year.
Oh
Six
my God.
600s, the Cocodona 250, and then I did a 12-hour race where I did 65 miles. Um, Next Friday I have
Do you know
San
how
Diego.
many? Have you counted how many?
How many miles it
Sorry,
is?
I was gonna ask how many hundreds have you done to date, or
That I
ultras, I guess,
that
either
I
or.
don't know offhand. I want to say somewhere around 30, I think, something like that. Not all of my hundreds are like sanctioned events because I will do like self-supported hundreds and stuff like that, just for fun. But I think it's somewhere around 30. Um, yeah, I don't know. I should be like better about that. I think if you go on Ultra Sign Up, it says I've done like 60 something ultras, maybe something like that. I don't know. Again, things like I don't really care about, like
Right.
buckles, all that stuff. Like I have a drawer that I just throw buckles in, and like, it just is what it is. So, that's not my like motivation for doing these things. And I'm not hating on people that like them because I think it's great. Like if that's what motivates you, totally cool. But it's not what motivates me. But I like the struggle, and I like the hardness and the memory of like what I learned about myself. Um, so yeah, next week I have San Diego 100, and I'm doing like another like I'm calling it the San Diego double because the Rock and Roll Marathon is the next day. So I'm
Mm.
finishing San Diego 100, and then like 12 hours later I'm gonna run this Rock and Roll half marathon with my wife. Um, and then I'm going to Wyoming to do Bighorn
That's amazing.
100. Yeah, I've
Oh no
never.
way! I'm doing the 50 at Bighorn.
Oh yeah, I've never been to Wyoming, so I'm excited. So yeah, we'll have to meet up there and like grab
That's
some
my
food.
that's my home state.
Is it? Well, awesome.
Yeah,
Like
I live in Austin now, but I live in Austin now, but I'm from Wyoming. I did the 50 mile last year. It's a beautiful course. You're gonna love it.
was it super muddy last year?
Yeah, not as bad as some years, but definitely very muddy. I think this year's gonna be very muddy, so be prepared for that. You get to
Yeah.
see the whole course twice, so you're lucky.
Yeah, I don't, how do you prepare for it? You just slog through it, I think, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah,
think there's a trick to getting prepared for mud. Um, you just go slower.
not that
So,
I know of.
yeah.
Yeah,
So anyways, I'm excited for that. That'll be fun. And then Moab 240 this year. That'll be my first time doing Moab. And I'm actually going to have a crew and pacer for that. So we'll see how that goes. I have a friend that's very insistent that he was going to pace me and crew me, and I gave in. So I think it'll be interesting because I struggle at the 200-mile distance, and I think it'll be interesting to have a crew and a pacer to like push me, um, and see if I can do a little bit better than I have at Cocodona. And then I think I have Javelina, and then I do like a fat ass 100 in San Diego. So I got a couple more, and then I'll probably throw something else in there if I can manage it. You know, opportunities come up, and then I just like, I'm always ready to run 100 miles. So I don't. It's not like I have to like train or anything for them. I just have to,
Right.
get my gear ready. So it'll be, it's
That's
going to be
awesome,
a
man. You got
busy year.
a stacked year.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot.
Sorry.
It's definitely a lot, but it's fun.
Are there any are there any races that you have not done, or any type of adventures that you haven't done that are kind of on your radar that you want to do eventually?
I mean, I'd love to do Hard Rock. Oh yeah, I forgot I'm doing UTMB again this year too. I forgot that got added to my schedule.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, which is the best race ever. That's a whole other story though. You know, I like to do international races. I like to go out of the country and like race in different countries, and so I don't know like all the races internationally, but there's a lot out there that I'd like to do. I just need to. It's just hard with a job and a family and all that stuff to balance going international and doing a race. So I try to do one a year. Um, UTMB will be my one a year this year, where it's in France. So, but eventually I'd like to do more international races. I just don't. It doesn't really matter which race it is. Like, I just want to like experience the world on foot, like in different spots. So, but in America, really, the only one that really I've never run Western, but like it's not. I don't know. It doesn't really excite me. It's more Hard Rock that I would really like to do. So, and for everyone that always asks, like, do you want to do the Barkley marathons? Like, I mean, you know, it's like that's like saying, do you want to win the lottery? Like, yeah, I would love to win the lottery, but to get into that is like impossible. Um, so, you know, I'm not, that's just a thing. So, but yeah, Hard Rock would be pretty awesome. I think I might go do like they call it soft rock, where you go out and do Hard Rock, but
Mm.
like it's not official, and you like do like 30 miles a day, and then just like Airbnb in between. Um,
Oh, wow.
I might try to do something like that, just because it's again, I'll probably never get into that race either.
What is the process like to get into Hard Rock? I don't
So
know
you,
much about
so
that.
you got to run a Hard Rock qualifier. So Bighorn is a Hard Rock qualifier. There's only a few races that are Hard Rock qualifiers, and they're all like super hard mountain races. Um, and and then it's a lottery, but it's like they only let like I don't even know what the number is, like 100 people in a year, and like half of them are veterans, and then half of them are new, and so if you're a veteran, that means you've run it before. So really, if they're only letting 100 people in, and the number might be a little bit more than that or a little less, I can't really remember, but like you're basically only the new people are like half. So maybe they're letting 50 people in a year, and probably thousands are applying, so your odds are like pretty bad.
Damn, I had no idea it was that hard to get into Hard Rock. Well, I'm sure, hopefully with Bighorn, you can get in with that. My last question is for somebody who wants to get to the level of Andy Glaze, run consecutive 100-mile weeks, be able to on a whim go and run a 100-mile race. Like, what piece of advice would you have for somebody that wants to get to that point?
Don't do it. No, I mean, you know, I, yeah, I don't ever recommend anybody do what I do. I mean, yeah, it's more like I'm the circus freak that you like point at, and you're like, oh man, look at the arm growing out of his cheek. Um, no, I mean, what I tell people like with that, like I'll use it like people always ask, like, I want to run a 100-mile race, like, what do I do? And my advice is always like, do it slowly. Respect the distance. Everybody wants to stand around the water cooler and say I ran 100 miles, but every ultra distance will teach you something about yourself and teach you something about your nutrition, your hydration, the pain cave, all that stuff. And when I did 100 miles for the first time, I spent like a couple years just doing smaller ultras first. I ran a bunch of 50Ks, then I ran a bunch of 50 milers, and I still like sprinkled in 50Ks after the 50 milers. Then I ran a couple 100Ks and 50 milers and just like bounced back and forth and all the different distances. Some with crazy verts, some that were flat, just trying to learn as much about my body as possible. And then I progressed to the 100 miles. Yeah, you can go straight to the 100 miles, but you're going to risk an overuse injury, and you're going to just risk doing it one time and then never doing it again. And if that's your goal, just to do it once, and people run a marathon, and that's all they want to do is just run one marathon, and and then that's it. But if they want to like really make it a fun thing where they can do it their whole lives or whatever, I would do it really slowly. There's no rush. I mean, the races will always be there, and honestly, your body just gets stronger as you get older. So, I'm 45, and I'm still out here charging. So, and there's people out there way older than me doing it, so that are killing it in their 50s and everything like that. So there's no real rush. Take it slow.
Man, yeah, that's one of the coolest things about ultra is I see people out there in their 70s, 80s killing 100 miles. It's incredible. So, dude, that's beautifully said, though. I really, really enjoyed this. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
We definitely got to do an in-person podcast because one, this delay has been killing me this whole
Right.
podcast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
second, I just want to meet you in person and have that connection too. So at some point in the future, we definitely got to get together, go for a run and do another one of these
100%.
things.
I want to come to
you
Austin.
coming on. Well, we don't have any mountains here, but we've got some good trails and stuff we could show you.
Yeah. Well, I just want to come to Austin because it's seems like a cool city. So,
It's great here. There's so much going on. I mean, the music and the comedy and the restaurants and people here are amazing. So if you're ever out here, definitely let me know.
Oh, I will. I will for sure.
Beautiful. Is there where's the best place to find you? Just your Instagram, or where do you want people to find you and connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm AM Glaze at on Instagram, Am Glaze, and then TikTok I'm Glaze Runs. So either place I'm there. So Strava I think just Andrew Glaze. I think yeah, but I'm verified on Strava now, so it's like real official. I got a little orange check
dude,
mark.
Congrats.
Yeah. I'm like an influencer on Strava. Not check marked on Instagram or TikTok, but on Strava, that's the only thing that matters to me.
That's amazing. Well, you definitely deserve it, man. So that's awesome, man. But again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.